This episode of Techno Buffalo is brought to you by Audible. On this episode of Techno Buffalo, we're going to talk about what Nokia has up their sleeve. We're going to define iCloud. We're going to talk about my cell phone showers raining from the sky. And we're going to answer all of your questions from the world of technology. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to another edition of Ask the Buffalo. This is a chance where you get to ask me, John Rettinger, any question you have from the wide world of technology with a little dose of awesome sauce to spice things up. You can ask your questions in one of two ways. First, you can go ahead and send it to me on Twitter at John4Lakers or at TechnoBuffalo. Just have to use the hashtag AskTheBee and you can ask anything you want. Otherwise, you can check out technobuffalo.com. Once a week, we will post an article up on the site asking for your questions, and you can leave those right down in the comments. So, let's go ahead and jump into question number one. So the first question comes from Twitter. User InfinityPark003 asks, John, do you think that the Nokia partnership with Microsoft is going to be a success? We got the first super secret sauce sneak preview of the device codenamed C-Ray. Steven Elop asked everyone to turn off their camera phones as he showed them to the world.
So now I am going to just ask everybody to put away your cameras.
And of course that's code for everybody. Please turn on your camera phone and record. And if you'll notice that I'm actually using a Windows Phone 7 device to hold this up. Whether or not you love Nokia or hate Nokia, it's been very hard to ignore their super awesome build quality and their fantastic industrial design. So Nokia bringing those two awesome things, coupling it up with a really solid Windows Phone 7 OS, I think we're going to have a really nice recipe for success on our hands. Not to mention Nokia's really incredible distribution channels and their, wait for it, market penetration in the rest of the world, especially outside of the US, is tremendous. They are one of the biggest smartphone manufacturers in the world. Even if their market share has been dropping steadily, their name and brand recognition is tremendous. Put Microsoft's resources behind it and I think you're definitely going to have a winner. So I think we're going to see the #1 smartphone OS being Windows Phone 7 in the next couple of years? Certainly not. But I do think we're going to see a really solid third place and a great option right behind iOS and Android. So do I think it's going to be a big thumbs upness? The answer is yes, I most definitely do. Especially when you put in a little slice of mango in there, it's going to be an absolutely delicious combination, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the first Windows Phone 7 Nokia device. So hopefully that helped answer your question. Our next question comes to us from Techno Buffalo user Austin Childers, who asked, John, do you think the Droid Bionic is completely canceled, or is it going to be called a different name? We first saw the Droid Bionic, if you remember, back at CES 2011 at Verizon's awesome Don't Ask Us About the iPhone keynote when they announced some really cool 4G LTE devices which have already come to market, including the LG Revolution.
So many new phones, so little time, but they're all from Verizon. Guys, slow down. I got the trophy. We'll do that one later. It's the LG Revolution.
The Droid Charge and a few of their MiFi devices. But what we haven't seen is the Bionic, which was supposed to be the first dual core. That's 2 for the number of cores smartphone 4G capable on Verizon. Right now the 4G devices are only single core, and the only dual core device does not have that 4th G in the Motorola Droid X2. So we're supposed to have already seen the release of the Droid Bionic, but we kept hearing it got canceled and canceled and canceled and delayed. In fact, we were one of the first sites that actually reported officially on the delay. However, Motorola is now taking to Twitter to say the Droid Bionic is indeed coming. Probably going to be a little bit retweaked from what we initially saw at CES, but it is going to be here. So if you want some dual core action on the nation's largest LTE network, you're going to be able to get it. Hopefully all the bugs that they had have been worked out so you can get through a full day of battery life. And if you want to get your benchmarking on and your fast downloads on, stay tuned for more information on the Droid Bionic. Alright, our next question comes from Techno Buffalo website as well, from user Tanner E, who asks, John, Do you think that the cell phone industry will become completely smartphone, or do you think that the dumb phone will have a chance in the business? And dumb phone doesn't necessarily mean a dumb phone for dumb people. It was just the term smartphones is becoming so widespread. It's something that was completely juxtaposed to smartphone. It's called a dumb phone. Doesn't mean that it's any less special. Doesn't ride the smartphone short bus to school. It rides in a regular car just like everyone else. But the era of phones that just make phone calls is very quickly coming to an end. We can hold the eulogy in the Razr's honor. Alright, it's been eulogized. Smartphones are doing more and more. Phones themselves are doing more and more. It's almost next to impossible to find a phone that doesn't have a calendar built in that you can't check email on. Every flip phone you can buy from every carrier now has that functionality built in. So the era of just making phone calls and perhaps just using a jitterbug like your grandma might use to make a phone call is coming to an end. Everything is becoming smarter, things are evolving, phones are getting more complex. So we're done, unfortunately. If you just want to make a phone call, you're going to have a hard time finding a phone. So go out and pick up a Razr on eBay or Craigslist while you still can. Not to say every phone out there is going to be Android, WebOS, iOS, Windows Phone 7. They're also going to be simple phones, but the operating system that the simple phones are running are becoming more and more complex. So that was a crazy convoluted answer. That was my hand signs for convoluted. To say that, yes, this dumb phone as we know it is changing, everything is becoming much smarter. The next question comes to us from Techno Buffalo from user Safey, who asks, John, can you explain to me what iCloud is? I really don't get it. And that's a question I've been getting quite a bit. What is iCloud? Why am I hearing about iCloud everywhere I go? What is a cloud? Am I going to lose my data if it rains, if there's a wind? It is not what's in the sky. It's got nothing to do with the actual cumulus thingies that might be above you right now. What a cloud essentially means is just a shared server, shared hard drive space on a server somewhere else. Not stored locally, not on your home, not on your computer. So what Apple's iCloud is, and that's sort of the baked-in cloud computing that's in Apple's new iOS. We're going to see it integrated into their next generation operating system called Lion. Essentially, it takes all of your information, all your contacts, music, stuff you have stored on iTunes, backup of your phone, and it puts it up into a cloud. It puts it up into a shared server. And it lets you pull that information down regardless of where you are. So you don't have to be plugged into your computer to get that information. You don't have to be tethered to any particular device. Anywhere you are, you have access to that cloud. And the reason it's sort of called the cloud is because you can access it anywhere. No matter where you are outside, you can look up, see a cloud, and get your information. Sort of a simple way to explain it, but it's just a shared server in the sky that lets you access your information completely wirelessly. And iCloud essentially does all of that, and it'll sync all of your information with stuff that's been stored on a remote server that Apple has. So oversimplistic explanation, but I hope that you found it useful. So I'd like to take a minute to thank our friends and sponsors at Audible.com, the best way to get audiobooks on your MP3 player of choice, including iPhone or iPod Touch. I actually just finished Freakonomics. It took me about 4 days in the car. It's a book I've been dying to read, but haven't had a chance to actually sit down and read the actual book. Audible.com lets you catch up on all your reading while you are driving, walking, anywhere that you have access to an MP3 player. If you want to check out Freakonomics or any of Audible's 75,000 titles, be sure to check out audiblepodcast.com/techno. You can download a free audiobook of your choice. Awesome way to catch up, it's super convenient, it's fun, and you get a chance to use your cell phone or your MP3 player. Another cool thing you can do with electronics. So thank you again to our friends at Audible. Next question is probably one of the most popular questions I get. This comes from user Dan, who asks, John, what do you do with the phones after you review them? Contrary to popular belief, I don't take a smartphone bath. I don't roll around in smartphones, cell phones. So many cells. Unfortunately, 99% of the phones that we get have to go back to the PR firms that sent them. So when I work with Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, and T-Mobile, their public relations firms send us a device when it comes out or just before it comes out, and it comes with a loan agreement. So we sign a loan agreement, we get the phone, we can review the phone for generally it's about 3 weeks to a month, and then we gotta send the phone back. If it's a phone that I want to keep for a little while longer, if I need it for comparison purposes for other devices, I have to request an extension for that phone, which usually does get granted, and I can get another 1 or 2 month furlough with it, then those devices all have to go back to the PR firms, and one exception being Apple. All of the Apple products that you've seen us review on Techno Buffalo have had to be bought. So that's how it works. We get them just for a quick period, then we got to send them back. The same is true with all the tablets that we get our hands on. So hopefully that helped and demystify a bit for what goes on behind the curtains at Techno Buffalo and tech reviewers in general. And speaking of the entire tech reviewing industry, that ties into our last question who comes to us from Twitter. This is user Tom of Action, who asks, is it possible to be professional as a reviewer while being non-biased? If so, then how? Man, this is a question that I really have been getting quite a bit. How do you not be biased, or why are you biased? Unfortunately, people have become very, very strongly adamant and pushing whatever smartphone operating system they like. So if I'm reviewing something by Apple and I like a feature that Apple has, immediately you're called a fanboy. If you're reviewing something that Android has and you like something Android has, immediately you're being called an Android fanboy. And what if you happen to put two phones head to head and you happen to like one more? Immediately you are considered biased. And unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. If you want to be a tech journalist and you want to get into the field, you have to have an opinion. That's what you're being paid for. That's what people are watching you for. You have to have an opinion. The best advice I can give is try and put all prejudged opinions out of your head. So if you're an iPhone user and reviewing an iPhone, look at it with a fresh set of eyes. You're an Android user, look at your Android device with a fresh set of eyes. How might someone else interpret what you're looking at? And no matter what, people are going to disagree with what you say. If everybody agreed with your opinion, it wouldn't be much fun to read or watch. So don't be afraid of the comments. Don't worry about the feedback. Be honest to yourself. Give a fair opinion for what you think is the best result for your comparison or your review. And that's all anybody can ask. And that's what people are looking at your channel for or reading your website for. So a bit of video making or tech reviewing advice, just be honest to yourself and the audience will respect it. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Ask the Buffalo. I'm gonna play Mario theme song with my eyebrows. Ready?